Good morning. You're listening to WPVM in Asheville, North Carolina, 103.7 on the dial. This is the BLAINESWORLD show, heard each Wednesday at 9 a.m., and you can also watch us on WPVM's Facebook page. I'm your host, Blaine Greenfield, and I'm here in my Zoom studio in lovely downtown Fairview, North Carolina. And each week we focus on the Asheville theater scene, as well as on positive news and information about people and organizations in both Western North Carolina and throughout the country. And toward that end, it's my pleasure to introduce my first two guests, and they are George Awad and Jamie Knox. Welcome aboard, George and Amy. And George read my mind. He waved to all his fans and friends in Facebook world. And George is the president of the Magnetic Theater Board of Directors, and Jamie is a playwright, also very actively involved in magnetic theater. And in addition, I should mention that George is also a performer. He's an improvised guy, an actor, graphic designer. He is, as mentioned, he's president of the board and co-host of the Asheville chapter of Creative Mornings. When he's not in front of an audience or a Zoom screen, he can be found in front of cappuccino and the latest Scott's cheap flights email. Very interesting. I didn't know that about you, George. Thank you.
Right. I forgot about that. Yeah.
Very important. Jamie's love with theater and performance at the age of 9 has been there ever since. She's worked as a director, casting director, and professor. This is her third play. No, it's actually not your third play, Jamie. It's your 9th play, right? We'll have to update that. And she's not slowing down, especially in this political climate. So it's number 9 we're on. And what's really interesting with this one, guys, is kind of the history of it. And we should just maybe talk a little bit about this. That originally, George, you were telling me you wrote this play with Jamie a couple of years ago. It was going to be a short play. It started out initially.
Kind of. Actually, Jamie reached out to me and said, "Hey, let me write something for the Fringe Festival." And I was like, sure. And, we sat around with a couple of beers and tried to figure out what that is. And we kind of came on this idea and for it. And yeah, I think we 5 minutes, half hour. And we had it submitted and accepted. And then, things just got weird.
And for the benefit of the people who don't know what the Fringe Festival is, explain that, George, if you would.
So it's a festival that is most, largest or creative artsy cities around the world have a version of this. It was originally started in the 50s, which is where the largest Fringe Festival is. And so it's sort of a collection of avant-garde, experimental theater, performance art, music, and like I said, a lot of cities around the world have it once a year at least. So Asheville has one usually every January.
Now, this year in particular is kind of interesting because it was going to be live and it's going to be in all sorts of venues in Asheville, but they're now doing it virtually. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
Right?
They are, but they're doing some in-person shows in March.
Oh, is that it? Now, when they do it virtually, are they taping
everything? They're doing virtually now.
Right. Are they taping everything at Magnetic, or can people do it at their homes and have it shown?
I believe it's at their homes. I'm not 100% sure.
Okay. But Jamie, talk a little bit about then how you and George hooked up, because I wanted to ask you, have you done plays with other people in terms of co-writing?
Yeah, actually last January, something I cared about, a play that I co-wrote with Jason Phillips and Travis Lowe, was produced by Magnetic Theater as well. And that play took place in the park, and you, as the audience, walked from scene to scene to scene. And that one was completely co-written in a totally different way than George and I are doing it.
And that was really such a fun thing. It just completely surprised me. For the benefit of the people who didn't get to see it, as Jamie said, you just walked in the park and you saw like 9 skits or something. And that was quite but it clicked. It really worked out well. Do you ever see that? Would that ever then be done? You ever see it on stage, or what do you think?
Where the audience moves?
No, where the audience stayed and then the actors moved. Could ever be done? Could ever be done at Magnetic, for example? Indoors.
The audience moves to see the different.
No, the actors would move to just like 9 different skits. The actors would come onto the stage.
Sure, I think most plays are like that.
Well, yeah, they are. Yours, they're so unusual. But I'm saying, I think for the people who didn't get to see it in the park, I think it's a real fun thing to see. That people would want to see it. So I hope you do it again sometime. This play, what you wrote with George, Tell us a little bit about it.
Well, it is about a middle-aged couple that's having a hard time in their relationship. They aren't really communicating anymore. They aren't being intimate that often, and they decide to bring someone else
Into the relationship.
the relationship.
Oh, okay. And the middle-aged couple, coincidentally, I happen to know them, I think, too, in terms of they're actors in this show as well. And do we know who they are, or can you tell who they are?
It's George and I.
Okay. So how
Yeah,
is it?
pure coincidence.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And
Because we wrote it for Fringe.
well, talk about that. I always wonder about that in terms of writing a play where you know you're going to be in it. Is that the first time you've ever done this?
Yes, I've never put myself in shows that I write.
Yeah. So how was that experience being one of the characters?
Well, I mean, I really relate to her, so that works out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And George, can you relate to the person?
Yes, definitely. There's a decent amount of me in it, but yeah. Okay. So to be honest, I've never written a play before. This is my first.
Oh, is it really?
And yes, I've written sketches, but never written a play. Well, she was saying that the experience is unique. So I don't think it's usually written this way. You can tell me, Jamie, Miss Number 9. But yeah, I don't really. I think we just kind of we texted each other like, okay, I'm done writing. Your turn. Okay, back and forth, and
Yeah, it would
somehow, yeah.
Yeah, he would start a scene and say like, I got, a fourth of the way through the scene, and then I would jump on and start from where he left off and add to the scene and so on and so forth. And now that we have all the scenes together, we just kind of go on and are just kind of fixing little things, making sure everything makes sense. Finding the funniest way to say something, that kind of thing.
Well, George, you mentioned you've done sketches before. Have you written sketches the same? Sketches typically you write with several other people. Is that correct? Or they often are?
Or at least you kind of write it on your own first, and then you bring it. Usually, the best way to do it is usually bring it to the other writers, and we kind of collaborate and punch it up together.
Because that's one of the things
yeah,
Magnetic does very well. You've done several sketch plays, and they've always been really kind of cool. Do you think this is going to be the beginning for you now of other plays? Do you see yourself writing any of this?
Yes, I'm pricing berets and scarves, and well, no, I hope so. I mean, I've never been a co-lead of a play either. So yeah, I don't know. I guess I'll answer that. Have me on again next month, and I'll let you know.
Let me ask you guys too. Do you have I assume it's going to be slated to be in March, right? Is that correct? You have dates for it? February. Oh, even better. So, do you have a director for it at this point in time?
Yes, Katie Jones is directing it.
Okay. Because the question I wonder too is, have you ever, Jamie more so than George, have you ever written a play where you also directed it?
I've offered, but every theater is like, nope. So they're pretty much against playwrights directing also.
Because it amazes me, some playwrights, you also see this in movies, where the person will write it, direct it, be in it. That's quite a task to do all those at the same time too.
Yeah.
As a playwright, Jamie, I've seen a bunch of your plays. I've also seen you as a performer. At this point in time, do you have a preference now, acting or writing plays?
I think I still enjoy writing. I enjoy the role of playwright better than the role of actor. Both of them I feel sort of like an equal passion for, but it's been so long since I've been an actor that I'm really excited to get back on stage.
Well, yeah, it's so exciting. We'll see you in this play. And George, again, let's talk a little bit about the play when it's going to be at Magnetics. The dates are, what are they? The dates for the play?
Dates are February 18th, 19th, and 20th. So Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Excuse me, Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
Will it be repeated or just one weekend?
Just one weekend only, 3 shows.
Okay, well, I'm glad you told me, so I better get prepared to get to it this weekend. There's no even...
You got to get tickets for each one.
There's okay. There's not even a holdover weekend or for a second weekend?
Honestly, the way Magnetic's main stage schedule is pretty packed, so probably not.
Talk
Yeah.
about too that, and I really give you credit. I just hope everything goes well. That we're actually doing this in the theater itself. What does Magnetic do from a COVID protection standpoint? And I think you guys do a very good job of this. Talk about what
Well,
happens.
sure. Well, everyone's got to have a vaccination card, either a photo or the real thing, fully vaxxed. Everyone wears masks. We don't technically sell concessions during the show, but we have them at intermission. But yeah, it's only just to be consumed outside the theater. So masks on the whole time.
Well, this show I'm really looking forward to, as I told you off the air, because I love the length of this and talk about the fact that there won't be an intermission on this one, right?
That's true. That's true. It's well, so the original Fringe kind of version, which honestly seems antiquated, just so ancient, from where it is now, was 25 minutes, 30 minutes, and this is about an hour 15, hour 20. And we think it actually is going to be better to just straight through, keep the energy at a certain level.
Well, nice thing people
Yeah.
get out of there early too, which is great.
Yes, yes, that's true. That's true.
So is that hard, Jamie, taking, as you had said, a 25-minute play or whatever you want to call it, one actor, into an hour and 15 minutes? Was that difficult?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you have to not only remember your sort of vision from the beginning, but you've got to fatten it up with a lot more. So it takes a long time, takes a lot of talking about it and trying different things, and getting irritated, and then going back to it.
You're talking about how long it took. Mention the process, that a lot of people don't realize, sort of soup to nuts, what a play is in terms of the writing and then reading it and then getting casting. How long did this take to get to fruition?
Well, we started sort of brainstorming in fall of 2020, and we're still adding and editing right now. So over 2 years.
And then now, are you in rehearsals yet for it, or you will be?
We will be this week.
Okay. So the rehearsals now will be, you'll rehearse them live at Magnetic or in person?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And talk about the process you have. So now, in addition to you and George, who else is in the cast?
Christine Caldemeyer and Delina Hensley.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So now you went through that. I guess there was an audition process, or you kind of precast them?
Yep.
Audition.
Yeah.
So the only good thing, I guess, for George, he didn't have to audition, I assume. Is that correct?
No, I was close though. I was almost cut.
I chose him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When you wrote it, did you write it with the intention that both of you would be in it?
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny because again, with the Fringe piece, it's almost like, because it's experimental, it's almost the experimental is the main focus. But once it becomes kind of a bigger piece or a play, then we were like, oh, we really need to flesh out these characters.
Right.
And add characters. And it was, yeah, so it's like it's a whole different thing. And then but we thought we were it from the beginning. Yeah.
So what happened that you were scheduled for the 2020 Fringe, and then at that point in time you decided not to go ahead with 2021? You decided to then at that point in time make it a full play?
Well, okay, so I wasn't completely honest about it taking 2.5 years, because there was chunks of time where we didn't write. But yeah, when Fringe 2020 didn't happen, we kind of just put it, on the back burner. And then what was it, like last summer, George? We were like, let's start back on this by August. And so
Right.
when August rolled around, it was like, you want to still do this? And he was like, yeah. I was like, let's do it. So we contacted Magnetic and said, we've got this show and we want to put it up. So.
And
Yeah.
talk about the playwriting process. First, Jamie, and then we'll talk about George as well. But in terms of writing plays, is this something you sit down every day and write for an hour, 2 hours, or do you just do it kind of whenever you feel like it?
So I write every Thursday night. I sit and write, even if it's just stream of consciousness, or I'm just eavesdropping on a conversation that I hear and just, writing verbatim what I'm hearing. I make myself at least get in front of the computer and write on Thursday nights. And then as we get closer, or if I have a deadline, sometimes I'm commissioned to write something and I'll have like a deadline. So as it gets closer, then I'm sort of writing more often after
Yeah.
my kiddo goes to bed.
So when you write on Thursday nights, how long do you write for?
About 2 hours.
Yeah. So you don't, like some folks I know write every single day for an hour, 2 hours, whatever. That's kind of cool. You just restrict it to one night a week?
Yeah, I mean, I also run a yoga business, and I'm home with my toddler, and so I just don't have the time. I would love to write every day, but I just don't have the time. So I have that one day of the week where I don't work on my business and definitely have childcare that night, and I usually go for a swim and then write.
And George, the same question about your process in writing. When do you write, or is there a specific time and way you do this?
Blaine, I'm all over the map. I really am. Jamie is so disciplined. I'm kind of envious of it. I'm just deadlines help me. I have that, pressure under fire thing. Yeah, I don't know. It's a mess.
Same thing
Sometimes
too.
I'll write
But
half
he can
of
sit and
and
write
then I'll
and
eat
write, and
something.
he
Yeah.
can, like, I don't know, he'll be like, I'm gonna start working on this, and he'll just write and write and write. And I'm like, that's amazing. I get really tired really quickly.
Now, George, do you
Yeah.
do the
Yeah.
same thing too when you're writing sketches or humor? Do you do the same kind of thing? You just kind of wait when you get inspired to do it and just go to it?
Again, deadlines help because sometimes I'll just write a line or two and I'll be like, oh man, I should make a sandwich. Or I just get distracted too easily.
But
And
by the
then,
way,
like,
that's a great line. You can put that in the play, right? A couple, is that in the play, Jamie, where he's going to get a sandwich?
No, but now I'm hungry. Thanks a lot.
So let me ask you too. I was fascinated by the whole process. So when you write that line, George or Jamie, do you bounce the lines then off anybody else other than each other? In other words, Jamie, will you show it to your husband, or will you have somebody else look at it?
I used to show my plays to my husband, but then he was never surprised, so I've stopped so that he can actually enjoy and be surprised at how much he's actually present in everything I write.
So he doesn't read,
That was a lot about me.
but he doesn't read it before the play. He'll just come see the play.
Not now. I mean, the first few, yeah, but not anymore.
Well, George, same thing too. When you write, do you bounce it off anybody else?
No, I mean, honestly, I think what's been helpful is that like Jamie and I will read the script back to each other, like play all the parts. Or we've had so far we've had some table reads with the rest of the cast, and that's been awesome. That's been really helpful. You get to see what lands, what doesn't, what's extraneous, what isn't, it's really helpful. But generally just to people, I feel like that can get you into trouble if you show it to like 10 people, because then you just confuse yourself.
And point well taken, there'll also be 10 different viewpoints as to what
10
works.
different viewpoints, right.
But now let's talk then about the acting. So this is kind of cool. You wrote this play, both of you are going to be in it. With the acting part, in terms of memorizing lines, do you bounce them off anybody else? Do you read with anybody?
I need to. I really need to run lines with people. It really helps me. But I'll still, walk around my house reading everything out loud. I try to change up my voice to be other characters. Yeah. We get there somehow, Blaine.
Jamie, same question. When you're in a play, and I've seen you in a bunch of plays as well, do you read lines with anybody?
Yeah, so I'll have my husband Zach help me with my lines.
Yeah. Because it's interesting. The only couple I know doesn't do this, and you know them, I'm sure, Mike and Karen Yao. They don't like reading with each other. They just don't. It's
really.
I don't know why, but whatever the reason, they prefer not to. So I guess it's an individual thing. How long does it take you to memorize the part for a play?
I'm a pretty quick memorizer, so yeah, it doesn't take me very long.
Because
Sorry.
No, go ahead. Yeah, George.
I was going to say, with the exception of this play, of course, I'm usually up until the last minute.
Yeah. Well, nice thing about a lot of the work you've done before in terms of improv, though. You don't have to memorize the stuff, or you kind of play
Yeah,
with it.
it's real nice.
Well, I guess here you get away with that a little bit because you wrote the dialogue, So
True.
I won't know, Jamie, your director will know, and I guess the other cast members will know.
Right.
Well, and that's what I was going to say earlier when you asked me about when people direct and act in it, and they are also the writer. Like for screenplays, you sell it completely, and it's no longer yours really. And actors can mess it up all they want because it doesn't really belong to you anymore. So especially if you wrote it yourself and you're acting in it, like you could just say whatever, however it comes out, right? And I guess it's a little bit similar because we wrote it. Now, obviously, we have to be able to cue the other actor, right? But I'm not going to be disrespecting any playwright if I don't say it exactly how it was written.
Well, I was thought,
True.
Jamie, and I'm looking for this for you. Have you ever done a one-person play?
No.
Because that would be the advantage, George, I would think, of writing one-person play. Because if you screw up the dialogue, it doesn't matter. You're the only one, aside from your director, would know it. But when you get other people involved, Jamie, talk about also after this play runs at Magnetic. What happens to a play in terms of having like legs or getting done elsewhere? And I want to specifically ask you because you have the 8 other plays floating around. Have any of your plays been produced elsewhere?
All of my plays have been produced in some form or another.
No, but other than in the area, have been?
Yes, two of my plays. One I was commissioned to write here was a radio comedy for children. It's called Sherlock Holmes and the Pepper Perpetrator. So it was produced here, and then it was also produced in Texas, which is funny because I'm from Texas,
Right.
but I had no connection to it just being produced. And then another show won a festival in a different state as well.
And what show was that?
Gladiolas.
Okay. Now, it would really be exciting. So that's, I guess, the goal of a playwright, to have somebody else pick up the play and then get produced elsewhere?
Right, and so that's like the ultimate goal. You have your plays that are getting produced regularly, and you'll be able to get royalties from that and have people doing your work. It's been really, really hard for that to happen because of the pandemic.
Okay. But that's what eventually happened. So when you finish this play, explain the process and what happens. How do you then, quote, shop it out or get it out so other people can see it or hear about it? Yeah, what happens?
Right. So I'll put it on a national database so that different theaters can check it out if they want to. And, with George's permission, I would also contact theaters personally, and some theaters that are open to like blind submissions, contact them. But this database, the Playwright Exchange, I'm going blank on what it's called, but this database actually, you can submit for different festivals that are happening in competitions.
Because what I hope, George, you do even in this play, and not too many theaters are still doing this, but I'd love it. Hopefully you can tape this, And I think about the last play I was in, I'm in like one play every 3 or 4 years, Trader was at Magnetic. And it was a great, I loved the play, but it closed down because of COVID. We got the first weekend in, if you recall, then it closed.
I was there. Yeah.
Okay, you were there. But what I wish had happened, it had been taped, and I think people would have seen it. Or even the play you're going to be in. Are you going to be, this coming up, will it be taped at any night? Will you tape it at all?
The idea is being tossed around. It's, I don't know. It's challenging because, the theaters around here can really afford to only really do it one camera straight on versus multi-camera and all that stuff. But it's possible. I'd like to.
Because again, to your credit, and I mentioned this off the air, the one play I did see at Magnetic was it was a taped version of the show. You were the bartender, I think, in that one.
Oh, right. The Christmas show, yeah.
But it was pretty good, because it felt like I was watching a play. I thought it was pretty good. So I'm saying I would hope more shows would be taped. Even Jamie, I believe this even in Broadway shows. I'd love to be able to see a show, pay for it, at my convenience, as opposed to if I can only get there one weekend.
I mean, I see what you mean, and I think a lot of people do feel that way. I think the beauty behind live theater is that it's supposed to be this living, breathing thing that dies when it's done. You know, the set is taken down, everything is gone,
Mm-hmm.
and that's sort of the beauty of it. And so I respect that, but I can see, you know, wanting to see your show again, or having people that couldn't make it see your show.
Yeah.
You know, I understand that.
Well, here, for example, with COVID, your show, I'm disappointed that it's only going to be the one weekend. You know, so if I can't get there, that only, you know, most places will, what Hart does, I think is very clever, George, food for thought for you guys. They have in the winter season, they have a show run for one weekend, and then they have a second weekend scheduled, you know, in terms of bad weather, or in terms of if it does really well the first weekend, you know, so at least have two
Sure.
weekends theoretically. So that's the point, Jamie. I'm just saying that, you know, I love being able to see a show, and hopefully in February and March, shows will start picking up again. And then we just had December. There were so many shows simultaneously. You know, everybody was doing a show. There were like
Yeah.
6 shows going on in the month. It's hard to get to all of them. You know, so
Sure.
just food for thought. So
Well,
anyway,
we were kind of a late addition to the Magnetic schedule, so they had already set their season,
gotcha. Yeah.
and yeah,
I would just encourage you, seriously, if you can tape it, because again, if people can't see it and they want to, it's an additional source of revenue, you know, too, because people pay, and I believe they should pay for it, they could get a ticket. Just, I love to see it, but I'll try to get there live. Um,
please.
talk about, George, a little bit about what Magnetic is doing now in terms of February, March, moving forward into next season, which we hope will be live the whole season. What's coming up?
Well, for one, we've got the shorthand job, of course, but we also have a sketch comedy show that is the theme is dating, and it's happening in early March. It's called Algorithm and Blues, and that is great. I'm actually in the writers' room for that.
And
And
talk, just stop a second. Talk a little bit about that, because again, Magnetic is almost famous for the fact that you put on some of these sketch shows. Talk about, I like how you described it, the writing room. What is that all about?
well, so again, everyone kind of comes. So it's a small writers' room. Basically, we myself, Jason Phillips, Kay Jones, and a couple of other people. Oh, and Zach Knox, Jamie's husband, will be
Oh,
writing
really?
music for it. Yep.
Great.
And we just kind of we meet up and we bring some ideas, and kind of either full sketches or half baked ideas, and then we talk it over and just riff. And the best thing in the world, the best drug in the world, in my opinion, is riffing and collaborating with really fun people who are ego free and just want to make something great.
And you
And
got,
that's a good writer's room right there. And then you
and,
just try and hone everything to make it as good as it can be.
and some of the people you have in it are fantastic. Jamie, is that the first, I've met Zach, but is this the first time we'll ever see him actually involved in something in the area? Like in a show
Yeah.
theater?
Yeah,
No.
he's hilarious.
Will he be he be performing also?
I really don't know, Blaine. You have to ask
He
him.
might be. He might be.
Okay. Just as performing. That's
Yeah.
very exciting. So is that the first time he's done something like this? Jamie?
No, we met doing theater. I was I was a director of a little children's show, and he was the accompanist, and he was also doing other theatrical shows at the time, doing mostly music for it, but little performances here and there. And then he's written a couple of jingles for different companies as well.
So after we have this one, George, we have about a minute left. Talk about some of the other stuff Magnetic has on the books.
We've got a great season, actually. We've got a couple of shows less than usual for our main stage, but only so we can actually space it out better. So we have Court of the Grandchildren, that's written by Michael Muntisov and directed by Jason Williams. Starbright, which is written by Sean David Robinson and directed by Ashley Millett Goff. The very, very talented and hilarious Travis Lowe wrote Recycled Nuts, and that's going to be directed by our very own Tippin. And Beautiful Cages by, of course, Jamie Knox, the very talented. That was number 8.
Is it the 8th play?
In your
Jamie?
repertoire?
Yes.
Give or take, yeah.
Number 8.
Give or take, yeah.
Yeah, that's what she calls it for shorthand.
And
then that's to be directed by Mandy Bean. And then Frankenstein Rubrics by David Hopes, directed by Doug Savitt. And Caroling by Gaslight, which is the working title by Skylar Goff.
Great season. Let me ask you this, George, if folks want to get more information about Magnetic's upcoming season, best bet is to do what?
The best way is to go to themagnetictheater.org. Themagnetictheater.org. Theater spelled the British way.
Okay, re.org. And Jamie, same
Mm-hmm.
question for you. Aside from folks going there to get information about your upcoming shows at Magnetic, best way to find out about what else you're doing is what?
I have a website, jknoxcreative.com.
Okay, jknoxcreative.com. You can find all about Jamie and all her other plays. Thanks as always, guys, for being on my show, this first half of the Blaine's World show. And I look forward to, now you give me the word, George, I'll put it in my calendar. Look forward to seeing this show in February. So thanks, guys. I'll
Thank
speak
you
to
for
soon.
having us.
Okay, as
Thank
always,
you.
a pleasure. As they work their way out of the studio where I kick them out, let me see how I can do that. Let me get my other guest in. Jamie, see ya. Be well. Thanks, guys.
See you later.
Okay, and we got George, great. And as I bring in my next guest, let me see if I can bring him in. As he works his way into the studio. Let's see, make host George. You're there somewhere, Dan, I think. Can you hear us? Start video. Okay, I think there he is. And good. So Dan's going to hopefully work his way into the studio. There he is. Okay, we were, Dan. Let me just
Did I make you sweat, Blaine?
You did. Let me mention a couple of things about WPVM. Our mission is to foster a community through programming that cultivates dialogue to inform and entertain. The station provides the medium for artists, businesses, community leaders, and nonprofits to share their voice on live radio. Listeners are invited to help support WPVM's efforts by making a tax-deductible contribution. They can do so by going to the website wpvmfm.org and looking at the donate option on the upper right-hand side. My guest the second half hour of the Blaine's World Show is Dan Beckmann. And Dan Beckmann does a lot of different things, but we're going to be talking about Dan Beckmann Photography. And Dan, you can wave to all your fans and friends on Facebook world. Okay.
Hi, all three of you.
Okay, well, maybe four if Aaron's watching. Dan is an actor, singer, director, writer, Texas Hold'em amateur. I didn't know this. Frequent breather of oxygen, but sometimes you don't. It's just frequent.
Well, if you're on Mercury, it's, you got to make do.
And yes, he also owns a camera, a little Brownie. Do you have a little Brownie camera?
No, but it's funny, Brownie cameras have been a topic of discussion this month for whatever reason, so thanks for continuing that loop.
He spends most of his days careening around the freeways and back roads of America with his performance and life partner, Aaron Durrett, in search of breathtaking natural scenery and the best local candy outlets publicly available. Very, very ambitious. And Dan, you kind of always amaze me, so let's take it from the top. So you mentioned before, we're not going to be talking about the performance aspect of what you do, but
Okay.
you're also a photographer. And I think I first saw your photography, aside from at your website, on your show. You have a podcast that's broadcast, and name of it is, again, I should know it.
Riley Live.
Riley Live. And one of the things I always enjoyed about it, one of the favorite parts of it, you would typically show one of your photographs, and which I love that part to it. When did you start taking pictures?
2017, when I was singing on board the Holland America Rotterdam over in Norway. I was traveling around and just taking in these. If you've ever been to Norway, it's one of the most beautiful places on earth. There's these huge, massive, breathtaking fjords, and the landscape is so beautiful, and like the architecture is well maintained. And it's just a picturesque place. And I was like, I want to capture this a little bit better, and I bought a starter DSLR camera and kind of fell in love with the fact that in photography, you could blend your right brain and your left brain. There's a lot of like mathematics and optics and light kind of science that goes into it, but then there's also the aesthetic creative part of it. So for me, it's like the perfect joint of those two things. So 2017 is what I'm anticipating.
You started doing it seriously, but before that in your life, had you taken lots of pictures or been a photography buff?
No, I had no interest in it actually at all. So that was just, it wasn't until that the technical prowess part of it kind of bit me that I took any interest at all in it.
So you didn't, as a kid, you didn't have a Brownie camera or some other camera?
I had a camcorder. I was like into video and stuff, but that was mostly because I was like making little sketches and home movies and stuff. It wasn't photography.
So 2017, which is kind of interesting, sort of late start. You got into it. You were in Norway. You started taking pictures. When did you think to yourself you had something going there?
It was probably after that first contract, when I got home from Norway and I started taking pictures of my friends and stuff and offering headshots. And then I kind of, that's actually about the same time I discovered in any profound way YouTube, because I started looking up all these tutorials and how to improve and craft photography. And as soon as I learned that I could go deep, deep, deep down this, and I started to pick it up really quickly, I was really addicted to it. So it was right after that point that I was like, you know, I'm going to keep at this and see what happens.
And talk about the process, because I know you helped get me into it as well. That I was in a little thing for you and Erin, and I kind of thought it was cool that you would tell us to go to YouTube to find out something. You know, that you did a great job explaining it. But how easy was it for you to learn stuff on YouTube?
I personally, actually, I use YouTube so much that Erin actually got me a YouTube Premium subscription, so I don't have to sit through ads because I'm on YouTube all day.
I should check into that. Really? That's interesting.
If you use it a lot, I highly recommend it because you can save videos offline. So when we're on the boat, I can download them and use them. But I'm honestly always multitasking. I always have some kind of tutorial on YouTube going on in the background. If you are determined, if you're a good self-learner and you want to learn something, you can learn, I'm convinced, anything on earth from YouTube and become proficient at it.
Well, it's funny because I learn best. I like reading this stuff. You know, I like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 steps. But YouTube, I'm starting to learn some stuff on YouTube. Photography aside, tell me something else you learned on YouTube.
So during the pandemic, got without theater and things, which is what I normally do. We were making a lot more like film and audio stuff. So I started to learn, I learned Adobe Premiere Pro, how to edit in Premiere Pro completely from YouTube. I learned how to, I'm big into audio engineering right now. There's, like I've set this little studio for vocals. I've learned all of audio engineering and vocal production from YouTube. Texas Hold'em strategy I learned from YouTube.
And the incredible thing we're talking about, aside from the cost of the premium subscription, all of this is for the most part free?
100% free. You don't even need the premium subscription. I just don't want to sit through ads anymore. I use it so much, but it's free. It's beautiful. It's a great time to be alive.
Well, let me ask you, on your end or Erin's end, have you done any YouTube videos to show other people?
My problem is, I mean, we have stuff on YouTube, but it's usually things that we've created for another medium that we end up putting on YouTube because that's where it goes.
Right.
My problem is I really like creating things, but I don't have that spark of like self-promotion in me. So I need to get someone on my side who can push things out and is passionate about putting things on social media, because I'm not. So a lot of my stuff, like I'll take 1 million photos and edit them, and then they'll just sit on my computer and they don't go anywhere.
Talk about what you just said there about taking 1 million photos, and maybe you can give me advice on this as well, is that, you know, I used to be old school. You take photos even before your time and actually get them developed, you know, get them printed out, and you have a whole bunch of photos. Now my problem is, I guess a lot of people have the problem, I have, you know, maybe 5,000 photos online, and then to do anything with that, is that kind of a common problem that people face?
It depends. I mean, if you're really motivated by like organization and promotion, there's 1 million websites that, you know, Zenfolio and things like that, where if you are into organizing and promoting things, there's really nice, elegant, beautiful ways to do that. I think the problem is now we're such a fast-paced, on-demand culture that content gets created so fast, it's hard to organize it and put it in the right place before you're on to the next thing. That's my problem, is everything becomes a mess because everything that I'm interested in just stacks up before I can organize it.
That's the point. And then to share it with other people. And I digress here, but I'll just tell the story. I don't think I ever told it to you, but when they used to take pictures with cameras and remember you go to the store and get printouts of the pictures, my ex would get upset that I could only take 1 picture at a time because it would cost money. You know, if you took 3 pictures, you know, you're wasting film, you have to process them. So it would sometimes take me like 2 years to finish a roll before I got it, you know, finished. And now you can take 125 pictures in 5 seconds and you have them all. But the key problem is, you said you then have to process it, you know, which I don't want to.
Well, and that's kind of, it's a double-edged sword, because where it's now very accessible to and to learn photography without wasting film, because you can
Right.
trial and error your way to success.
Right.
It also makes the craft way more accessible. So if you really want to like be found, or if you really want to succeed in the business, it's very hard to convince people nowadays that photography is something worth investing in, because everybody is a photographer, right?
And the problem is, back to what we're kind of talking about, is that everybody's a photographer, but excepting on Facebook or Instagram, you don't see a lot of their work. You know, that it gets developed, and people don't print out, unfortunately. But let's segue that into Dan Beckmann Photography. And I'm impressed. We even have a logo there. I can see it in the background. This
Like
is now,
that?
that's official now. So it's Dan Beckmann
It's
Photography.
backwards. So I guess we're
No, I can
Ned.
No, I can read it, or at least I set my camera so I can read it. But talk about Dan Beckmann Photography. So then you started taking these pictures, and now you actually have a photography business, and you talk about the kinds of pictures you do take typically, Dan.
So I like everything. It's easiest to define what I don't necessarily. I'm not necessarily drawn to like architecture and street photography. That's about the only two avenues that I'm not super drawn to. My main focus is landscapes and wildlife. But I take a ton of pictures of people and portraits and things like that, because that's what you do as a photographer too, because especially in this industry, it's a really nice synergetic craft, because you go join a theater production and you're around 30 people, 30 actors, I should say, all of whom need updated photographs. Right. It's a really nice companion to theater. But my main passion is just to go and drive in a car and get lost and just find landscapes and animals to photograph.
You know, as you're talking about it, it sounds like you have an idea for a show that you could be looking at bridges, you know, in maybe Madison County, you know, and you could take pictures of the bridges. What do you think?
You know, it's so funny about that. Do you know that? You know that musical?
I love it. Yeah, one of my favorite musicals.
That song, I used the song from that show to propose to Aaron.
I remember. I'm gonna chill when you talk about it. I don't know. I should have told you to. I don't know if you could pick it up quickly, but it was such a great. You know, I'm watching Dan does this podcast with Aaron, and all of a sudden I start watching that show, and the photography and the music, it just drove me crazy. It's probably, we don't show it now because probably copyright kinds of restrictions on showing or playing it. But I just love that. Did a great job on it. But talk a little bit about, then I'm just curious. So you do at a theater, you do at a show, take a whole bunch of headshots. Can people, I'm just wondering out loud here, could people do a headshot via Zoom? Has that ever been done? Could you do it?
You mean like if I coach someone to you mean like posing them and then taking a screenshot kind of thing?
Could you ever do that?
In theory, you could. So essentially, you remember when we did lock-in?
Right.
That's kind of what we did. Was we spent so much time, because so much of photography is optics and light, and that's really the skill. Is if you can shape light on someone, even your phone camera can take a headshot worthy photo. And with lock-in, of course, a lot of time and energy went into teaching people cinematography, camera angles, and lighting. So in theory, yeah, you could. But that's challenging. Not everyone has the equipment.
But I remember, so appreciative of the fact that, you actually taught us how to do what you wanted us to do. You know, like I wasn't thinking about lighting. I wasn't thinking of background. I wasn't thinking about all the stuff. And they said, no, this is what you wanted, and you made it very simple to do. Going back to, so maybe we'll hold on that bridges of idea for you. We won't do that. But talk a little bit about then some of the stuff you have done. You said landscapes. Can you show us some of the work, if you would?
Yeah, I have a, let's see if I can get it pulled up here. I have a collection of 50 or so photos here that are in, the only order that they're in is that they're in the alphabetical order that they were in.
Okay.
On my desktop.
And
so
Dan's picking them up. I mentioned that, again, I've seen a bunch of these on his podcast. I've also seen them on his website. Good stuff. And maybe just talk as you kind of show them, and we'll talk about how long we want to do this for, but talk a little bit about some of the stuff we'll see, Dan.
Okay, let's see if I can get this. So it's from all over, and I can just kind of chat about what was where I was and what was going on and stuff.
Okay, I want to give you the whole screen. Yeah, I don't see anything yet. Dan Beckmann has started screen sharing. That's very, very attractive.
You see it?
There, perfect. Okay, so this is, and I love how we can see it, Dan. So this is one of Dan's works. Describe what that is.
This is a tree called the angel oak that's located in Charleston, South Carolina. It's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years old. And I love this picture because this doesn't give you the actual sense of scale. This tree is so massive. It's hundreds of feet in every direction. And I was really proud of this picture because I was trying so hard to capture it, but it was really hard to capture the scope of it on camera. And this is as close as I got, but I just love the pattern of the tree.
And then hold on a second. I have an idea, because if you're listening to the show on the radio, which some people are, you see this beautiful old tree coming out many different directions. And then what I might ask you to do is at the end of the show, or at your convenience, if you could just send me the pictures in some sort of file or a YouTube clip or something, then what I'll do when I put up the radio clip so people can listen to it, they'll also be able to see it, if that would be possible.
Oh, sure. That's cool.
Yeah, that way, so people watching on Facebook Live see the beautiful shot. But if you're listening, we'll make it available to you in some fashion. It'll be in the comments section on the radio, but you'll really
Which means you're probably watching it right now, because we're talking to you from the past.
Yeah. Facebook Live. Okay, Dan, so that's one. Go from there, if you would, please.
Okay. This is another one of my all-time favorites. This was in Antarctica, which was a stunning, once-in-a-lifetime place to be.
And describe what people are seeing if they're listening.
So it's a lot of ice and penguins. And then there's a collection. See, what the thing about Antarctica is there's very little wildlife that is native to Antarctica. It's a lot of penguins. There's Gentoo chinstrap penguins. In certain places you get emperor and macaroni penguins. And then a couple of species of seal and some birds and lichen. That's about all that lives in Antarctica. But since there's no real threat of human interaction down there, if you're lucky to get off on terra firma and stand on the land of Antarctica, these penguins will come right up to you and check you out.
How close were you to the penguins?
I mean, they walk up to your feet. They walk right up to you.
Wow, beautiful.
It's surreal. And I'm sorry, right now, if you're seeing this, if you're hearing this on the radio, there's a lovely picture of a mother inappropriately feeding its children.
Why inappropriately?
Well, because it's not dinner time conversation.
Okay, but beautiful photo. Wow. Yeah, I hadn't seen all these. So go to the next one, Dan. Yeah.
This is a bird just outside of our window. Actually, like the day that we got locked down from the pandemic, I looked outside and there was this little blue bird. I thought that was kind of a sweet little picture. It's just in our backyard.
Talk, Dan, if you would. How important is the camera you use?
It depends. I mean, so the camera is less important than the light and the lens, for sure. You can, especially with phones being what they are, you can take better pictures with your phone today than you could with like the highest grade digital camera, 10 years ago. So it doesn't matter as much. Gear doesn't matter. What matters is you start seeing light, start observing light and how it affects things, and you get different qualities of light on different subjects to get different photographs and make different colors pop. And light and your lens is really way more important than your camera.
And I'll share something else you taught me. It sounds so basic, but you taught us, and I wrote about it in my blog as well. You gave the hint that people forget to remember a little basic thing, like it's sometimes helpful to clean your camera.
Yeah, if you guys have your phone, next time you're going to take a picture, do yourself a favor and just wipe your lens with your shirt. You're going to take one before and then take the same picture after you wipe your lens, and you'll just be amazed at the difference. You'll never not wipe your lens again.
It's such a simple technique, but I'd never thought of it,
Yeah, it changes everything because the grease on your lens that builds up captures the light and it muddies up the photos and it reduces the dynamic range and all sorts of other technical jargon. But just wipe your lens, trust me.
So this next picture is?
This is my friend Anna, who was another one of the singers on the boat that I was on. We're down in, I think this is around Hawaii or French Polynesia, playing with some really fast shutter speeds to kind of freeze motion. For those of you viewing or listening on the radio, there's an attractive woman flipping water, and the water is frozen in the air. It's quite a sight.
So you were able to get the water to freeze just like that? That was fantastic.
Yeah, it's like a 1,000th of a second shutter speed or something like that.
What a shot.
And then this is the opposite. This is a really slow shutter speed. I was on a road trip with my friend Ben, and we were far, far, far away from any cities. And we this is what happens when you open your camera up and you point at the sky on a tripod for like 20 seconds. You get all the light from every star that's out there that just soaks into the camera sensor and gives you this really surreal, beautiful sky.
When you're out, like I said, on the road, or do you always have your camera handy?
If I'm traveling, I now can't leave. I cannot be in an airport without 2 backpacks. It's a curse, but it's also wonderful.
Yeah. So you have how many cameras are you taking with you?
I always have 2 camera bodies on me at any time because, well, if one goes down, I want to have the other, but also it's always nice to have kind of a wider lens and a zoom lens available at any given time, just in case, especially when you're shooting wildlife. It doesn't wait for you. So it's good to be able to just snatch up a different camera rather than having to swap lenses around.
Do you ever shoot photos with your camera, with your phone anymore?
Yeah, I do. All the time if I'm out and about and I don't want to, if I don't have my camera, if it's just a simple shot and I don't want to lug out my equipment, because the saying, Blaine, is the best camera you have is the one you have with you.
Right. How often do you print out your stuff?
That's another thing I'm just not very good at. Very rarely. I've been meaning to print out some of these photos for Aaron and my home in North Carolina, and I just don't get around to it because, again, I like the craft and I don't like all the stuff that comes afterwards as much.
So this next picture, if you would describe it.
This is the Garden of the Gods in Colorado. I can't remember where I was. I just got lost. I drove in my truck and slept in the truck in a blizzard and just drove around the whole state getting lost. It's called the Garden of the Gods. It's really beautiful. A lot of really cool pink rock structures. And this is Buenos Aires in Argentina. And so is this, which is a picture that I love and my fiance doesn't. So right now, put a comment down in the comment section if you think this picture is cool or not.
Yeah, okay, we'll do that. Seriously, we'll have some fun.
Yeah.
But I can't believe not liking it. Yeah.
Northern Minnesota. This is around where I grew up north. I used to go camping every year in northern Minnesota with my family, and this was actually one of the first attempts I ever took of doing astral photography, photography of the night sky, which again is just kind of like a long exposure to really, you can see the Milky Way there clear as day. I love this photo.
Do you have a favorite place you like taking pictures at?
Yeah, anywhere the light is beautiful and is very natural, it's great. But I personally resonate with like the northern climates, where there's mountains and like craggy rock and pine trees. That tends to be, and it gets a little bit cool at night. That tends to be where my soul thrives the most. So I get the most passionate about photography there too.
Now, wherever you go, and again, you travel a lot, do you always try to find time to take some pictures?
It depends. I'm always up to a whole lot of stuff. I honestly don't take as many pictures as I should. But if I'm out and about and I have if Aaron and I are driving around, there's almost always photo shoots happening because it's when you have the freedom of time and you can kind of lay back and enjoy nature. That's when the muse tends to bite. When
you're driving about, do you sometimes tell Aaron or you, if you're driving, do you just stop the car and just say, we have to take this picture?
Yeah. And Aaron, if she's been on the show before, Aaron Blaine, but she's the best. She is the most accommodating person ever. She's always excited to be doing stuff. So whenever you see a photo opportunity, she'll sit in the car on a freezing night and wait for me to finish taking a photograph for 35 minutes in the pitch black on the freeway.
But pause for a second. This picture is just incredible. Describe it, Dan.
So I was down shooting a surprise. My buddy was getting engaged. He was going to propose to his now wife down in Colombia, which is one of the first places they went on a date. And he flew me down to Cartagena, Colombia, to follow them through the town where they went on their first date. And she didn't know I was there and take these photos until the point where he popped the question. It was really fun. But right outside of the airport or near the cruise terminal, there's these macaws. There's this huge collection of macaws that are just open. They're open air, but they feed them, so they continue to be there. But these are just wild birds. And I really like photographing birds. Actually, I have another great picture I took on my phone of these birds pecking at my camera because they were just curious at it. So I stepped away, left my camera on a bench, and these 2 macaws started pecking at the camera, which I thought was really cool. But they tore the shutter button off of my camera, which was like $120 per plate.
Well, what's incredible about these pictures, Dan, it's almost like you have these birds posing for you. It's just incredible They're so up close. Or some of them, I guess you weren't that close. That's if you have a good lens, right? You can be pretty far away.
It's both. This is like a 200 millimeter lens, so it's a fairly long lens, but I was also able to get up close because they weren't afraid of people. And I love shooting birds because birds kind of do, like we talk about when people are getting ready, they're preening. When human beings are trying to primp up, they preen. Birds just pose. They just primp and pose, and they make really cool. They're just beautiful to photograph. There's so much personality in birds.
Great. So next one.
This is another Colorado when I had just woken up in the morning before the sun was just rising. You can see it. The orange in the mountain is the sun coming over the mountains behind me, just over the horizon. And it was so cold that it was frozen. And I ended up walking actually barefoot down in this snowy bank to this frozen pond before the sun came up and set up the shot. And all that ice you're seeing in front of the camera was popping and cracking as it was warming up. It was just beautiful. It was a beautiful morning.
So just get the picture. You went all out to get it. I'm impressed.
Yeah, I probably could have put shoes on, but
okay.
This is Hiroshima, Japan. That's a place they call Peace Dome. It's a structure they've left exactly as it was when the atomic bomb dropped. And they leave it there, and they leave it there as you can look it up online, but it's supposed to be a symbol of things that shouldn't happen again, but it's essentially supposed to represent the ever-long peace between Japan and the United States moving forward.
Beautiful.
Yeah. I was there in Japan. Luckily, there's a very brief period called the Sakura season. It's the cherry blossoms that people associate with Japan, and I happened to be there just when they were in bloom, and it was really, really lucky, really lovely. Here's some more of that northern atmosphere. This is Alaska. This is a place called Icy Strait Point. More cold air, pine trees, mountains, glaciers. I love it.
I see too. I don't know if I've ever seen it or any slides in this series, but I could see you taking some beautiful shots in Asheville. I don't know if you ever had a chance to shoot pictures in Asheville.
I don't have them in this slide. Asheville is one of my probably top 5 places I want to settle down someday. I actually got to shoot another engagement session, a surprise engagement session in Asheville up in the mountains, and it was this misty, foggy day. It was beautiful. Yeah, not in this series though.
But wow, that's a bee we see there. Incredible.
Well, this is a bee, and this is a butterfly, and consequently, they got engaged right after this too.
Really?
Yeah.
The things you learn. Very nice.
Yeah.
Were you are you going to be at the wedding? You'll shoot the pictures.
I already did. Yeah, and they're long dead.
Okay.
And speaking of weddings, this is a wedding of Aaron's mom and stepdad down here at Laurel Gray Vineyards, just outside Winston-Salem, North Carolina.
And you got hired to shoot that wedding?
Yeah. Yeah. Lucky. It was between me and a lot of guys, but I made it happen.
Okay. Lovely. Great picture. Wow.
This is my sister and her most likely future husband again in Charleston, South Carolina. We had a lot of fun.
And talk about we'll maybe talk about this as a final picture. It's really cool. You see them live, and they're coming alive there, just watching this. Mm-hmm. How do you get somebody when the previous slide, just go back to it if you would, where they're jumping. How do you do that?
You set up the shot, and then you get adventurous people who want to do fun things. And you just do a burst shot, hold down your shutter and get 8 or 9 pictures and pick the best one.
Incredible. Dan, we're running out of time, so let me just check with you on a couple of things. If folks want to see these pictures, best bet is your website for your photography is what?
It's danbeckmanphotography.com. Beckmann is with 2 N's, Beckmann. You can also find me on Facebook, Instagram, all under the same handle, basically. If you search it, you'll find it.
Okay, so danbeckmann.com with 2 N's.
danbeckmanphotography.com.
Dan Beckmann Photography, I'm sorry. And they'll get to see, if they want to look at some of these pictures, aside from what we're going to post online, they'll get to see a lot of your artwork there as well?
Yeah, there's a lot on my website. I'm in the process of updating my social media accounts and my website with some new photos, but there's always stuff to see on my social.
Okay. And I'd like to thank you, Dan Beckmann, for being my guest this second half hour of the BLAINESWORLD show. It's a real treat to talk to you about something other than your performing stuff. I always like talking to you about that. I'd also like to thank George Awad and Jamie Knox, my guests the first half hour on the BLAINESWORLD show. and Amy's Prisnash, my producer. I look forward to having you join me next Wednesday here at 9 a.m. on WPVM 103.7 in Asheville, North Carolina. You can also catch us online at WPVMFM.org and watch us on WPVM's Facebook page. And if you were listening on the radio today, we thank you very much. Look in the comment section or right below the link to the show, and you'll be able to see some of the stuff. Dan, speak to you soon. Thanks a lot, buddy.
Hey, thanks for having me, Blaine. Talk to you soon.
And just stay with me here a second as I sign